In Civ 6 or Civilization 6, everybody loves scouts. I'm talking about waking up in the middle of the night needing to change your bed sheets type of love. If the scouts ask for their social security and credit card info, half the Civ community would gladly send it along with the deed to their house, no questions asked. But me being in the minority who would make Imperial Japan blush with how much I despise scouts, I decided to conduct a scientific experiment. Ethical, of course. How good are scouts scientifically and mathematically? And are they truly as bad as I say they are? Or are they as good as other people say? In any case, like and subscribe if you do enjoy it. It does help out the channel a ton, and you won't miss out on future content. No scouts were not harmed in the making of this video. I killed as many as I could find, single-handedly nuking the scout population. Let's start with why everybody loves scouts. I'm not going to be giving my opinions in this segment. It's just going to be me giving out the reasons a lot of people like building one or two scouts at the start of the game without any personal bias. I'll act like I love scouts or something. My acting skills might be a little too realistic for some of you to handle, so this is your warning. Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm coming for you. Not in the way your fans do. The first reason is exploration. Scouts have 3 move speed and are mainly meant to be explorers. They have a promotion tree that incentivizes exploration rather than combat, and they are the cheapest unit in the game, so they can be pumped out and sent into the wild to fend for themselves for relatively cheap. You can use them to effectively explore the map and uncover all the hidden Easter egg locations, and use them to find different things like ancient ruins, meet city-states first for the free envoy, and find new spots to settle cities. They're the best thing since sliced bread. Why wouldn't you want to build scouts? Hell, every time I build a scout, I get so hard my dick gets classified as a weapon of genocidal destruction. The second reason is tribal villages. They are free bonuses that give a boost to whichever civs moves a unit onto the tribal village first. Scouts with their superior mobility can cover ground quicker and find these villages faster than other civs, thus giving you the bonus and preventing it for the AI. The bonuses range from free scouts, builders, population, and even an ancient relic somehow, like apparently you can find a katana before even bronze working, which is strange, I admit, but I guess this proves that we weren't the first people here in Civ 6 lore or something. The final reason is city-states. Many civilizations that aren't quite competitors unless they start near Torres de la Paine, of course. In that case, Will Smith's got nothing on my melatonin-induced hypothalamus-seeking missile of a slap for the city-states in question. The thing with finding city-states first is really twofold. First, you get a free envoy if you meet them first. Secondly, with that free envoy, you can put a money in that city and get an early suzerainship for exploration, bonuses, or even to levy their citizenry to fight in your pointless wars of expansion. With an extra envoy, you can also get suzerainty easier than everyone else. Kinda makes sense since you start with a whole extra envoy, especially when considering that you don't get too many envoys in the early game, aside from a couple in the civic tree, Amani as a governor, and 1 envoy every time a good live-action cartoon/anime is made, or I guess 1 per millennium. This should be a good enough reason to build scouts, right? I pretty much Billy Mays that shit, and I'm gonna be the second big YouTube A-list actor with my masterful delivery of a scout salesman. Well, let's talk about why I hate scouts and why I don't feel like any of these reasons even matter in my opinion. Before I give my counter arguments to the above, I first want to give a disclaimer. I think scouts are great in multiplayer and fine on lower difficulties. Why do I say this? Concede on my argument before even starting? Should I change my name to the pussy-ass bitch lifer? No. It's because what I'm talking about is Immortal and Deity difficulty in Civilization 6, which is what I always play on, and I think what most people at least strive to beat for personal pride at least once. But when it comes to the lower difficulties, they're so easy. Your pet dog could probably beat Prince. I'm not even joking at all. Like, I could probably get a literal monkey and train him enough to beat Prince difficulty at least. Multiplayer is also different because you're up against humans with gray and white brain matter instead of the AI. These people, hopefully, have a brain. An extremely large one if they're a TheCivLifeR subscriber, of course, but if not, they still have one because they're still human. Why I'm saying this is because Deity, Immortals, Scouts are damn terrible for the reasons given above, starting with exploration. Scouts have 3 move speed, Warriors and Slinger have 2 and are slightly more expensive, but they are useful for the whole game. The way movement in Civ 6 works is that each tile costs a certain movement point. So if you're moving through forests and hills, then Warriors will have the same move speed, I guess, as Scouts, which are only better when A, you're in wide open terrain, or B, be when you get them promoted. But how are you going to get scouts promoted when they couldn't even beat Hezbollah in a fight? You're going to say exploration, of course. Finding natural wonders in tribal villages and other civs gives scout experience and thus promotions. But how valuable is that promotion going to be when you get it on average towards the latter end of a scout's life cycle? If you get the promotion turn 1 or start with 1, you'd be right. Heck, I'd be joining the Church of Scouts in that case. But by the time you actually get a second promotion, most of the time you already have a good chunk of the map explored, and sometimes you can't even get that one promotion. It's all dependent on RNG. Are scouts really worth it after you already have everything explored already? No. Actually, I don't think anyone thinks scouts are good past turn 50 after you've pretty much explored everything. Second and third are pretty much one and the same with tribal villages and city-states. On Deity, the AI starts with 5 warriors and double production bonuses. Do you really think that building your one measly scout is going to be even close to enough to outcompete the AI with a 5 warrior head start? Multiply that by 5 for all the other AIs in a small map type of game, and you're already competing against 25 warriors and potentially more, since they do have production bonuses and even have builders who will be able to chop and build mines easy. My point is that tribal villages and city-states you're going to grab are the ones you would have grabbed anyway, whether you build a scout or a slinger, since the AI has so many units that Genghis himself would have trouble killing them all. Genghis, the man might as well lead the Green Party with his carbon reduction contribution to society by wiping out everything that breathes. On the higher difficulties, you're only going to grab villages and city-states that start near you or in areas the AI can't or won't explore, like a mountain pass or past a city-state only you're suzerain of. So building scouts is really a moot point aside from maybe the 1 or 2 tribal villages you may grab every game, and that's a big if. We'll get into the experiment later, but that's just my hypothesis, I guess. These are the reasons I don't like the argument most people make when it comes to scouts, but again, we do have to go through the experiment to prove whether or not I'm right, because for all I know, maybe a scout gives me 5 more tribal villages on average, and my brain is just smoother than a baby's bottom. And there goes my school zone privileges. We have exclusive footage of a new TheCivLifeR subscriber right after hitting that button and getting a rock-hard jawline and larger-than-life balls that barely fit into a wheelbarrow. After hitting subscribe, this man immediately got a 789% increase in the mass, size, and girth of his nutsack that a mortal wheelbarrow simply can't hope to contain. As you can observe, they can now also be used as a mobility scooter to quickly travel at blinding speeds. So leave a like and subscribe to not only get tumor-sized testicles, as well as a body that'll blind anyone dumb enough to stare directly at it, but 2, more importantly, not miss out on future content. Before we get into the experiment, let me talk about my 2 big reasons for not liking scouts. Last segment was me sort of, I guess, countering the previous arguments, and this is me giving my own. I am believing why scouts are scum of the earth that makes Satan proud. The first reason is that, again, with 5 warriors, you are not getting more than 1 or 2 tribal villages, but at the cost of limited early defense. You can build 2 slingers and get the archery Eureka for the cost of around 2 scouts. Not only that, but not having a defense early on, especially without a stockpile of gold, is going to leave you pants down starfish unprotected if an AI decides to launch a special military operation. Having an extra 2 slingers or 1.5 warriors, I guess, is a lot better for early defense and a much better investment since they can actually be useful past the halfway mark of the ancient era. Without an early defense, the AI will attack you 9 times out of 10, and just building 3 to 4 units will make your military seem a lot stronger than it is, so you can even have builders and settlers walking around unprotected since the AI probably won't attack you, although I wouldn't recommend doing that. The second reason is that scouts are useless after turn 50. After around that mark, you have zero need for scouts for a couple of reasons. Namely, that you'll already have most of the map explored, and that with your natural borders reached, you don't really have a good reason to continue exploring. Once you get to mountains, oceans, lakes, or the borders of other civs, you don't really get anything from going beyond because you aren't going to settle any more cities past that because you can't or the loyalty won't let you. You won't get any tribal villages either, nor city-state envoys, since there's again about 25 AI warriors from turn 1. It's like going to Walmart on Black Friday at 6 p.m. There's going to be nothing left, city-states included. The only 2 reasons you have for continuing is A, you want to find other civs earlier to trade resources with if you have extra copies lying around, or you need luxuries for yourself since you have none, or it's to find other city-states to get their suzerain bonuses for yourself eventually. But again, most of the time you find a city-state, they already have 3 to 6 envoys if you go past the AI's borders and find them in that way, so you won't be able to even get the suzerainty until later on in the game, at which point why not wait until they find you, or you send units like horsemen to go exploring, since you'll at least be able to bring those units back and use them after a while. And other civs on Deity will find you easily. You should have most civs on Pangea met by turn 100 max, and with the scout you might get them 20 turns earlier at best. All of this is really to say scouts serve no purpose after turn 50, let's say sometimes even earlier, and with their upgrade path being skirmisher ranger, even if you want to argue that the ambush promotion makes them strong, I guess, that's still at least 3 promotions to get to, and how the hell are you going to get 3 promotions on a scout? You gotta send him to go stop Gilgamesh's war carts or something? You might as well at that point, since your scouts are so fragile that a single hit and you're done and lose all that investment, whereas building any other type of unit is more stress-free, more immediate, and even more effective. Before turn 50, sure, if every game ended on turn 50, then scouts would be one of the better units in the game. But it doesn't. There's still around 200 to 250 more turns you have to play, and unless the scouts can provide enough value to really, I guess, counteract the warrior or the slinger you could have built instead, then I don't see why scouts would be that effective. In any case, let's get to the experiment. And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, the experiment, the mathematics. Pucker up your butthole because I'm about to go Albert Einstein in this bitch. How am I going to account for the variables and ensure a fair experiment for all parties involved, since of course I do have my biases? Well, it's simple. I can't. If I decide to use the same map and just build scouts with one and warriors with another or something, then I already know what the map looks like from the previous attempt, and even if I retrace my steps for steps, word for word, bar for bar, a lot of the time moving a warrior or slinger versus scout is different, since you want to explore as much as possible with a scout, and there might be a barb camp or something that you'll want to avoid with a scout, but with a warrior or slinger you'll instead want to fight that barb encampment, or you're fine with just moving past it, so I can't really account for everything in an experiment. So the experiment will go like this. I'll use the average build I think a lot of scout enthusiasts argue for and go for double scout into either slinger, settler, builder, or settler, builder, slinger, depending on if a civ starts near me or not over 3 different games. And I'll use my preferred slinger, warrior, monument, settler, and then slinger, settler for the 3 other games. Now again, a lot of RNG is involved, so this isn't perfect, but in this I'll be checking 4 different things. 1, how much of the map I explore. 2, how many tribal villages I find and collect. 3, how many city-state envoys I get, and 4, how many civs do I meet? With this, I'll cross-reference both different builds and the averages over 6 total games, 3 for each one, and see which one is more effective over the course of the first 50 turns. It's not going to be perfect, but it will be good enough in my opinion to at least get a broad idea of things and how they will usually go. I'll post the proof on the VOD's channel linked in the pinned comment down below, and again, we are looking for a significant advantage for scouts because I think everyone can agree that after turn 50 scouts are kind of useless, so if I get an average of like 1 tribal village and 1 envoy in every game while building scouts, I would honestly argue that building the warrior and slinger is still 100 times better, because over the course of the other 200 turns, the warrior and slinger are just going to give you so much more value than building the scout. In any case, let's get to the results. Over the course of 6 games, the 3 with scouts, I found 21 tribal villages, 5 city-state envoys, and met 10 different civilizations. The warrior slinger start gave me 15 tribal villages, 6 city-state envoys, and 7 civs met. The only caveats I want to discuss, I guess the thing you put after the hypothesis or whatever that could have fucked up the experiment, is that the last game where I was playing with the non-scout start, I started within 10 tiles of civs in every single direction and only got 2 tribal villages. If you take the first 2 of each game and then maybe take the 2 best games from the scout build, then you would have 14 envoys for scouts and 13 for non-scouts, although that is the problem with this experiment and you would really need to run it a couple hundred times for trying to win a Nobel Prize or something, so I'll stick with 3 game averages, although I do want to take into account that the last game was absolutely terrible when it comes to trying to find city-state envoys and even tribal villages, although I did find the most civs in that start, so I guess that sort of counteracts things a bit. Anyways, the map exploration really didn't change at all. Like, I didn't get more necessarily of one map over the others, because a lot of the time I got to a natural barrier like the coast as well as mountains or something, and the scout start would, of course, obviously give you more of this map explored for sure, but even with civs and envoys met, they were fairly even with envoys in favor of the non-scout start and civs in the favor of the scout start. One other thing I found is barbarians, the menaces of society. They really really only were a problem in my Scout Start games, where I wouldn't have the military to defend my cities, and it ended up being a reenactment of the fall of Rome. All things considered, when it comes to averages, the Scout Start had 7 tribal villages per game, 1.7 envoys per game, 3.3 civs met per game over the course of 50 turns. The non-Scout Start had 5 tribal villages per game, 2 envoys per game, and 2.3 civs met per game. So when it comes down to it, if you go double Scout, you get 2 more tribal villages and 1 more civ met at the cost of, I guess, maybe let's say the same amount of envoys, although the non-Scout Start had a little bit more. Let's discuss these results. When it comes to the evidence over the course of, admittedly not a large sample size, but it was the best I could do, of games, the Scout Start gives you a couple more tribal villages, negligible civs met, and negligible envoys. Take note though that Scouts are useless after turn 50, and in all of my games, around turn 35 to 38 in each of the 6 games I played, I pretty much ran out of things to explore by that time, and I was just filling out any spots that I might have missed. A lot of what happened can be blamed, I guess, due to RNG. Again, everything was essentially even aside from the tribal villages, which would have been even if I didn't get that terrible start in the last game. But even if we just go ahead and just, let's say, screw it, sucks to suck my fucking left titty TheCivLifeR, we're counting each and every game. That's fine. You still only get 2 more tribal villages on average. In the other games, I did have room to explore, so I got more tribal villages, but less civs met. When you take into account the barbarian threat in the early game, not to mention the fact that without a military, the AI will usually declare war on you depending on how far away you are, then Scouts giving at best 2 tribal villages at the cost of your early defense, and even mid to late game defense, considering they have nowhere near the value generated over the course of a game, that's something like a starting warrior and slinger will give you just by existing over 300 turns, helping your military strength and helping to keep you safe. I would say that this experiment showed that the double Scout is really going to do jack all for you 99% of the time. Although if you really like tribal villages, then yeah, I guess they're fine. And for the single Scout Start, I was going to test that out as well, but I got tired. I don't care, call me a lazy fat ass down below who hasn't seen his dick in decades, but it wouldn't have given more than what 2 Scouts would have given you as a start, and even that only gave me about 2 more tribal villages in every game. This is pretty much the results of my experiments. I like to think that I proved for the most part that Scouts really are pretty terrible, but let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. As always, if you did enjoy, leave a like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton, and click this video in the top right corner for more. Peace.